What's up gamers, DreamcastGuy here, and it's Top 10 Thursday. I'm sure you guys have noticed over the course of the 100 episodes of this I've done that I'm always in front of my giant collection. I love getting cool games. Off-the-wall stuff, big mainstream games, just anything is super cool to me. But because of this, I end up, in my pursuit of getting cool collectibles, buying games that sometimes downright suck. But I try and be open-minded about it, to beat games even if they have really low review scores. And in the process of this, sometimes I end up forcing myself to play hours and hours of games that are absolute garbage. So this week, I want to vent about that. These are going to be the games that really kind of just stick in my mind as being very specifically special kinds of garbage. So these are my picks of the top 10 most hated PS4 games I've played. Number 10. Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. Whenever you're picking up the controller to dive into a fighting game, typically people are looking for two main things. A big roster of cool characters to play as, and some proper balancing. Meaning that no matter who you pick, it's going to be a fair fight, so whether you win or lose, it's still a blast. And somehow, despite the fact that these two tenets of good design seem so straightforward, they were completely screwed up in Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. I mean, I'm just gonna say it, how the heck did you forget to put in any of the good Marvel characters? And how are people doing things like infinite combos or chaining together specials for an entire match? There is no logic to this design, which means that this is a game that utterly flopped and earns my ire. Number 9. Planet 2000. As we get into this entry, you're probably looking at this gameplay and having a little bit of trouble even understanding how the heck this is a PlayStation 4 game, since it has the graphics of something from the PlayStation 2 era, but it is unfortunately an actual release. This is a real game that is purchased with actual dollars on the PlayStation 4, and still to this day that utterly melts my brain. Look at these weird actors who are actually kind of just reading the lines in such a creepy monotone manner. These are the real cutscenes, and even when you get into the combat itself, the real matches, it is basically just a futuristic ripoff of Twisted Metal. This is one of the games that is so aggravatingly bad that honestly I believe it should be removed from the PlayStation Store, since anyone who buys it is going to be obviously ripped off. Number 8. Sonic Forces. In 2017, we strangely got not one, but two separate major Sonic games, one of them being good and one of them being an absolute dumpster fire. We're going to be focusing on Sonic Forces because it is so bad that it still just confuses me as to why they even released it. Now, as you're probably noticing here, there are several different styles of level in this. There's boss fights, weird levels where you have a custom character, where in my case I made this goofy dude here, and then there's missions where you're actually playing as Sonic himself. But the issue is that none of them are fun at all. Even after having done every single stage and got max rank, I still was so bored I didn't even want it near me. It's something that just very much frustrates me because it could have been good if they cared, but they obviously don't. Number 7. Neverending Nightmares. There's a personal rule I have to try and consciously purchase at least a few indie games every single year to support the developers and honestly to try and see what weird new ideas are out there. And this is one that I think on paper was probably genius, but in execution just does not function. Neverending Nightmares is sort of like a hide and seek game, but the rules of it just constantly change. Sometimes you're caught by a monster and you get a game over. Sometimes it puts you in into the next stage. Sometimes there's a super bad guy that will actually grab you and it will help you. There is no logic, there's no reasoning, and so because of it, I found myself just very distracted by the actual functionality of it. I got so lost in the idea of how to play it that I could never become invested in it, which meant that I just ended up spending hours and hours and hours roaming these hallways looking for some sense of real life in this. Number 6. Mafia III. Imagine if you accidentally bought a game that was so clearly undone that you were kind of just blown away that they were even legally allowed to release it. Because that is genuinely how I felt the first time I played Mafia III. As I was driving down the road, the sun would just randomly spin out of the sky, meaning it would go day to night in a matter of seconds. When I was fighting people, sometimes they'd just fall through the ground. There were times when I was doing missions and people would just straight up kill themselves before I got a chance to take them out. But even beyond the glitches, Mafia 3 just became incredibly repetitive. Now, I bought this game knowing that some open world games have you do a basic task over and over again, but Mafia 3 really goes beyond that, since you are really just kind of doing the same 2 missions back to back on repeat forever. This really drove me nuts because the original Mafia games are exceptionally good, and they have some really smart design in them that make them stand apart, whereas this one ended the trilogy on such a sour note. Number 5. Battleborn. Within the games industry, it seems like everybody likes to play nice. They want to get along and be friends, at least for the most part. One exception to that rule is Battleborn. Now, you may have forgotten this game by now because it just crashed so badly, but before it came out, it was something that was being chattered about quite a bit, because Battleborn was claiming that they were going to be a bigger and better version of Overwatch, which is obviously a pretty big claim. So honestly, I was curious and decided to pre-order both Overwatch and Battleborn since they came out so close together. And what's funny is that, well, to be quite frank, Battleborn is a bomb. It sucks. It is a MOBA, meaning that this is more like a first-person shooter version of League of Legends. In every match, you're trying to get kills, gather up experience points, and put in talents to try and customize your character on the fly in every single match, which means that every round of this game could be about 30 minutes long, and it really kind of drug every sense of cool action or intense pacing to a standstill. While it did end up getting a very small and very hardcore fan base, by now everybody has quit because there's just not much meat on the bones of Battleborn. Number 4. North. Earlier in this video, I mentioned that I like indie games. I like to find them, I like to play them, and sometimes I like to be baffled by them. But North, it's the dark side of indie. It is strange just for being strange. It doesn't have a point, it's not written in English. I think that it has some sort of political message, but honestly, I can't figure it out. There is just so much weird iconography that it really never comes together. I mean, it's just so bizarre that it feels like the guy is trying to be weird just to be different. I mean, it's like if I decided to post a video of me going outside right now into the freezing rain and just doing chin-ups on a swing set. Is that funny? Yeah, I guess, but it doesn't really come together. It doesn't make sense. Why am I showing you this? Why am I freezing? Well, because I'm dumb, and I'm somebody who bought North because I thought it could be great. And it's not. And for that, I really get annoyed by it. Number 3. Dead Alliance. Every single day you see new games showing up on every platform. It's just an inevitable part of the business. People are constantly trying to put stuff on there because they want it to sell. But sometimes I see stuff that is very obviously ported from platforms that don't exactly fit the PlayStation 4. Like this. Dead Alliance is quite obviously a cell phone game, and a very bad one at that. The The controls are floaty, the combat and how you score points doesn't really make sense, and in general it's just not fun to play. It acts like it could be a giant epic game with a cool story about a dystopian zombie future, but it never bothers really pulling the trigger on it, excuse the pun. It's just something that is so aggravating and personally really gets under my skin because I bought it. I regret spending $40 on this incredible piece of trash. Number 2. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 5. If you are somebody who is lucky enough to grow up in the late 90s or early 2000s, there's a pretty good chance that at some point you put a disc in a console and tried to become that next pro skater. These games, in fact the entire series from Underground to Project 8, are incredibly good and incredibly different styles of sports games. They really kind of highlight the fact that action, fun, excitement, those can all be encapsulated in something as simple as just doing a big skate trick. I love that every map had little objectives in it to unlock the next course. It made it where every single time you started to explore the world of Tony Hawk, you were getting something out of it. And the reason I say all this is because Pro Skater 5 completely misses the point. It's not fun, the physics are screwed up, and really just trying to do normal tricks is downright impossible. It really seems like aliens came down from orbit and decided to try and replicate what they thought a good game was and ended up creating a horrible mess, and something that to this day really kind of pisses me off. Number 1. Umbrella Corps. Throughout all of gaming history, there have been tons of really big, epic franchises that have exploded into popularity only to later burn out. It seems like success can sometimes end up drowning out a franchise, but two series that have managed to stay very cool and very different is Final Fantasy and Resident Evil. Now the reason I mention that is because RE has done a lot of different stuff, but one of the things that's kind of bizarre is its spin-off. When it comes to the main series, they like to try and stick close to its roots of cool survival horror, but for the side games, they flat out don't care, and it's pretty apparent when you play Umbrella Corps. This takes place in the actual Resident Evil universe, but is basically a cartoon. You're playing as secret agents who have special armor on that makes them immune to the undead, and they're trying to shoot enemy players. It's a squad-based combat game where you're trying to score points and get touchdowns and hit people with your giant hook that makes you run at 80 miles an hour. I mean, really, if I was not showing you this gameplay, you probably wouldn't even know that it exists. That something this eccentric and this confusing could even be real, but here it is. And really, I gotta admit that it irks me. I wish that this game was actually great, and it's not. It is a piece of garbage, and for that reason, I am awarding it my pick as the most confusing game that I downright hate. Did your favorite hated game not make the list? Got an idea for a future top 10? Leave in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. But do me the biggest favor of all and keep dreaming. Man, these games were really bad, and unfortunately, in order to make this video, I had to play a lot of them a second time, which made me genuinely want to rip my hair out. But I'm not going to do it because, well, then I'd have to take off this awesome hat. Thanks guys for watching, you guys rock. Bye! Ooh, these games are bad. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, you know, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.